Hey everyone, this is Joey Coleman and you're listening to the Savvy Dentist Podcast. Join us as we discuss how you can focus on creating the kind of remarkable patient experiences that will keep your patients coming back for more. We're going to have a great conversation and I hope you'll join us.
Welcome to the Savvy Dentist Podcast with Dr. Jesse Green, the show where great dentistry meets great business. Listen in each week as we bring you an inspiring person who will share their story, ideas and business techniques to help you create a practice and a life you love. And now introducing your host, Dr. Jesse Green.
Hello everyone, it's Jesse Green here. Welcome back to SavvyDentist.com and to the Savvy Dentist Podcast. It is fantastic to have you here for another episode of the show. Now, my guest today is a superstar when it comes to customer experience and customer retention, and I'm talking about none other than Joey Coleman. Joey is the author of a fantastic book called Never Lose a Customer Again, and if you've not read this book, I'm going to say straight up, get this book, read it, devour it, absorb it. Everything in this book is practical and useful, and I know is going to be enormously helpful. In our conversation, we touch on a variety of things, huge amount of things we talk about. The 8 phases of customer experience, why creating an experience has to be personalized. We talk about baseline experiences versus remarkable experiences and how to create both and why both are essential. All of this and more is what we talk about. I hope you join us because there's so much practical stuff in here that Joey shares that is absolute gold. I'm going to also recommend you become part of Joey's world because everything he teaches is magic. Everything he does is wonderful. Head across to joeycoleman.com, grab the book, listen to his podcast, which is called Experience This. And I know you're going to get so much value out of his work, out of his teaching, and out of this episode of the podcast. So here's Joey. Joey Coleman, welcome to the Savvy Dentist Podcast. It is an absolute thrill to have you here. How are you going, my friend?
I'm doing very well, Jesse. Thank you so much for the invitation. And thanks to everybody who's kind enough to listen into our conversation today. It's exciting to be here with you.
Well, I can't wait to talk to you, Joey, because I feel like in a sense that you're my brother from another mother, in the sense that you talk about a lot of the things that are near and dear to my heart. Your book, which is an absolute classic book, is called Never Lose a Customer Again. And the tagline is turn any sale into a lifelong loyalty in 100 days. It's a wonderful book. And so I know we're going to dive into that in a moment, but I can't help but ask you about your background because you grew up as a country kid. You've been involved in the arts. You've been through law school. It seems like an unusual blend of things to find yourself in the customer experience or CX world as it's known. How did that come about?
Jesse, you are such a gentleman and so polite to say an unusual background. Some might call it eclectic. Some might call it ridiculous. It's really up to to let the buyer beware and see what they think. My path has been a roller coaster, to say the least. I was a criminal defense lawyer. I worked in Fortune 500 business consulting. I taught at the postgraduate level. I have a law degree. I studied government international relations. I worked for the CIA. I worked for the Secret Service. I worked in the White House, Office of Counsel to the President. So I've had this crazy career that led up to me starting my own ad agency and then becoming a customer experience speaker and writer. And I would say that the thread that ties it all together is in every job I've ever had, the way you advance, the way you were rewarded for your accomplishments was to have a keen understanding of the human condition. What is it that makes people behave the way they behave? What is it that makes people think the way they think, feel the way they feel? And so in each of these positions, I advanced or I was able to achieve my goals based on a keen understanding of that human condition. And so applying that to customer experience felt like a very obvious and natural segue in that regard. And it also gave me the chance to bring to bear a variety of different perspectives. The lawyer's more analytical perspective, the White House employee's more persuasive perspective, the CIA or Secret Service person's more investigative perspective or more curious perspective, the artist more creative perspective. And I like to think that I've been able to blend all of those and continue to blend them as I serve my clients and my audiences when we talk about customer and employee experience.
I'm really glad you added employee experience. They're a customer in their own right. And I'll talk to you about that separately because I wanted to ask you about secondary customers as well.
Perfect.
Before we do get into the nuts and bolts of your work, again, your book is wonderful. It's a very detailed, very practical. I can see the analytical lawyer in you coming through in that book because it's very methodical, very step by step. What I wanted to ask you, though, is when you sat down to write the book, obviously you'd observed some issues around customer experience. You'd observed some issues around losing customers, perhaps where growth was stagnating. What was it that actually prompted you to sit down and pen the book? Because it is a big undertaking to write a book. You don't write a book unless you've got a real fire in the belly about something. So what was it that was the fire in the belly for you?
Well, it was actually a couple of things converging, Jesse. There was a report that I read, an interaction with a client that I had, and just a driving desire inside based on what I was seeing in the marketplace. So I'll unpack each of those briefly. I had an interaction with a client. I was running an ad agency where they wanted me to get the phones to ring more. They had a new product that they were offering in the marketplace, and they wanted me to develop an ad campaign for it. And so I did. And we made the phones ring like crazy. Like they actually had to hire more people in their call center to handle all the calls. And I was very excited about this. And the client was very excited about this. Fast forward about 3 or 4 months later, and I was meeting with them to talk about what the next year was going to look like. And I said, well, I like to think we made a good amount of money off that last campaign. So hopefully we're ready to double down and really take it to the next level, like any good agency owner would want to do.
Yep.
And they said, well, yeah, Joey, we definitely signed up a bunch of new customers, but we didn't really keep them the way we had hoped. And I said, well, break that down a little bit for me. And they said, well, more than half of the people that signed up for this new service have canceled the service already. Now, Jesse, I was staggered. I was like, more than half? That's an abysmal failure. And yet I, as the marketer, hadn't had insight into the longevity of the new customer. That was not something that was part of my contract. That was not even, to be frank, something that was part of my purview in terms of the data analytics we were looking at. And that irritated me because I felt I had let the client down. Yeah. So around the same time, I was reading an article about the business of banking. Now, you called me a little crazy to sit around and read business banking articles, right? But I was reading this article and there was a throwaway line in the article and it said, a new customer in the typical bank leaves before the 1-year anniversary 32% of the time. So 32% of new bank customers close that account and leave that bank before they hit the 1-year anniversary. And half of those close before they hit the 100-day anniversary. Well, combining that piece of data with what I had experienced with the client left me with a fire inside to not run an ad agency anymore that was just focused on getting new people in the door, but rather was focused on sustainable long-term client relationships. So I went back to that client and I said, here's the deal. I want to implement a new plan where we start to focus on the first 100 days of the relationship. And I started doing research for it. I started doing analysis and looking at case studies. I started applying my ideas in the world of this specific client. And then we started doing it with our other clients and our other clients and with new clients. And next thing I knew, I developed a methodology and a framework that not only was, hopefully a good idea, something that I thought could work, but we had proof that it was working in the marketplace. And after doing more and more of those consulting engagements, I had people asking me to speak at events and speaking more and more about the topic. I eventually realized that I wasn't going to be able to get on every stage in the world, but I could be in every Kindle in the world and every library in the world and every bookstore in the world if I put this down in a book. So that's kind of the origin of how the first 100 days went from an idea to being something in a book called Never Lose a Customer Again.
Well, I'm now convinced that we're brothers from another mother because, well, interestingly, I ran a marketing agency as well. I sold my first dental practice. I ran a digital marketing agency for dentists, and it was exactly the same. Can you make the phone ring? Yes, we made the phone ring, but it was at temporary upswing.
Right.
And exactly the same thing happened. There was not the sustained outcomes. And then all of a sudden we started realizing that if we're going to really grow the business, we've got to minimize that turnover of customers. We've got to retain them and so on. And so it's a very, very similar experience. And I'm so glad that you've had that experience, because it's going to tie very neatly into the dental practice as well. But I wanted to ask you about the magical number of 100 days. Because that is a very specific number.
It is.
And I know that you're an analytical sort. I know you're very, very detailed. So I wanted to ask you, why is that number so important?
I think that number is so important because across all industries, large and small, online and offline, product and service, domestic and international, we find a commonality. And that commonality is the breakpoint at 100 days. It's just a little bit over 3 months. It's just enough that if you're in a B2B kind of businessy world, that the quarterly report comes in and things change. It's just enough to give enough time to go through most organizations' new customer onboarding process. You're onboarded and you're supposed to be seeing the results. And in most organizations, customers aren't. They're not seeing the results. They're feeling neglected. They're feeling like all the time that was spent courting them and enticing them and intriguing them in the sales and marketing process, now that they've actually been there for a while, they don't seem to matter anymore. And what really triggered the 100 days was that banking article led me to say, well, let's apply the 100-day metric to all these other businesses I'm researching. And what I found is that somewhere between 20 and 70% of new customers leave before the 100-day anniversary, depending on your business. Software as a service, the industry average is 20%. Auto mechanics, 68%. Cell phone companies, 21%. Even though cell phone companies have historically some of the most draconian contracts for breaking a contract early, 21% do. And the numbers were just, restaurants varied between 40% and 70%, depending on the type of cuisine you served, right? Pizza joints is about 48%. So it was just one of these crazy things where the more I looked at different industries, the more I realized that this was a problem plaguing every business on the planet. And yet it was something that most business owners weren't paying attention to. What was scarier to me, Jesse, than the 20 to 70% leaving in the first 100 days is that the typical business owner had no idea what their percentage was. And when they actually did the research, they found that it was double digits.
Yeah.
And it was staggering. Additionally, as a student of the human condition, I know that if I said to anybody listening, I know we've got a lot of amazing savvy dentists that are listening to the show. If I said to you, I've got a program you need to implement, but it's going to take you 3.5 years. There's no way they'd buy in.
No.
There's no way. It's too long. It feels too hard. If I had a program that in 6 minutes I can solve all your retention needs, well, it's too short. It's like 6-minute abs. It's never 6 minutes. It's much longer than that. If I say we've got a program where we're going to focus for 100 days, it's long enough to feel valuable, but short enough to feel doable. And what we found is that's how not only the customers respond and react, and we lay that foundation, but the employees and the staff, it becomes much easier for them because I'm like, you don't have to run forever. I just want you to run for 100 days.
Yeah.
And once we lay that foundation, then we can kind of take our foot off the gas a little and enter into the conversation of, all right, this is, I don't want to say maintenance, but it's not as important that we are focused on every single moment of every single interaction. We can kind of ride a little bit on the deposits we've made in the karmic bank account.
So many questions and so many threads of conversation that I'm very lucky to be able to explore. But I wanted just to start with 2 quick questions and then we'll get into the nuts and bolts. Why do you think business owners aren't aware of their number? Part B is what's the real cost?
The real cost of not knowing that number?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So first of all, I think running a business is incredibly difficult.
Of course.
I've been an entrepreneur. I've run my own business for 20 years. I ran a law practice. I ran a marketing agency. I now run a speaking business. I ran a graphic design firm. I've been in a variety of different businesses. And running a business is hard. And most business owners in the last few years in particular have become adopters of this idea of KPIs, key performance indicators, the data that we want to pay attention to. I would posit that your customer retention in the first 100 days is a KPI you should be paying attention to. I think the reason most owners don't pay attention to it is biological and systemic.
Yeah.
Here's what I mean by biological. Human beings are designed for the chase, not the catch.
Yeah.
We're more interested in finding something new and shiny than sticking with what we already know. And one only need to look at the behavior and how things change between when we're dating someone compared to when we're married someone to see how the change in our energy and enthusiasm for this endeavor shifts. Additionally, systematically and structurally, I think there are some issues in that most businesses have a head of marketing or a head of sales. And some businesses, the owner is the head of marketing and is the head of sales. But we spend so much time doing that and focusing on that and allocating line item budget for that, that we don't have time in our day left over to pay attention to the people who've already raised their hand and said, I want to be in relationship with you. I'm all in. You know, people ask me all the time, Joey, how much should I spend on customer experience and customer service? Like, it's real simple. How much are you spending right now on marketing? Oh, well, we did a $100,000 campaign over here and a $20,000 initiative over there. And I just bought $5,000 in ads on Facebook. That's just to see if it works. I don't know. They can quote those numbers off the top of their head. But when I say, instead of spending $5,000 on Facebook, I'd like you to spend $5,000 on gifts for the clients who have been with you or the patients who have been with you for more than 5 years. Well, Joey, I don't know about that. What would I get him? And would it really even work? And why would I spend money? I'm like, wait a second. You just told me that you will happily light $5,000 on fire with Facebook on the hope that it leads to a click, that leads to an appointment for an initial consult, that leads to a patient that needs 7 root canals and braces. But when I tell you the people who've been with you for more than a decade, I want you to shower with them with some love and do some personalized custom gifts for them. I'm met with, well, that feels like it's a little risky. I think there's a fundamental challenge there. To your second question, part B, what is the cost? Well, the cost is only your business.
Yeah, 100%.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. I have yet to meet a business owner who said to me, Joey, I've got all the customers I need. I don't want any more. Or Joey, I don't need any more referrals. Or Joey, if all of my customers left today, don't worry, I'd be able to get new ones back tomorrow. The thing that keeps the light on is the customer that comes back again and again.
Yeah.
Not the first time customer, not the new customer, not the sexy customer, the consistent customer. And so if you want your business to perpetuate, you want your business to be sustainable, you want your business to be sellable in the future, especially dentists. Hello.
Yeah.
Most dentists I know have a vision of eventually not being the one with their hands in the mouth and being able to exit that and go do something else. Well, do you know what the secret to increasing your multiples is on your exit?
Oh, yeah.
Your book of business, how many customers you have, and the longevity of those customers. Not the, there's 200 customers on the books. No, if I'm buying your business, I want to know how many have been on the books for more than 5 years. And we'll do a multiple off of that.
So interesting you talk about that. I had a really good conversation with John Warrilow a little while ago, who wrote a book called Built to Sell.
John's a great guy. I know his book. I know John. Yeah.
Yeah, great. And we were talking about recurring revenue. And in dentistry, you've actually touched on something that is part of my DNA and something that's very near and dear to my heart and something I'm sometimes criticized for as well. And that is the concept of recurring revenue in a dental practice. And everyone kind of goes, you know, recurring revenue models, it means you've got to have a subscription business and this and that. I mean, that's one way.
That's one version. Correct. It's not the only version.
It's not the only version. The other version, which we're talking about, is having repeat purchases, which comes from that retention, that customer experience. And you're absolutely spot on. It adds value to the asset. It's what creates the enterprise value. So when you do exit, you're going to get that multiple that you spoke about. And that, I think, is really exciting. So thank you for touching on that. You've lit a little spark of joy. I've had a Marie Kondo moment in my podcast right here. We've sparked some joy.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, my pleasure. Yeah.
Thank you. So let's talk about your book, because in your book, you do identify 8 distinct phases there. And I love the fact you found 8 A words, which is a wonderful, wonderful achievement in itself. But could we just talk about that sequence? Because I think people will understand that. And then I'd like to, once we've gone through that and we've explained what those different phases are, I want to talk to you about how to understand it, but then how to make it real.
Absolutely.
This is where the rubber hits the road. So could you take a moment to walk through the 8 individual phases, please?
Absolutely, Jesse. And what I'll do is I'm going to fire hose this a little bit. We'll go through all 8 at a rather decent clip, and then you can tell me which ones we want to dive into more specifically.
Yeah.
So as you alluded to, there are 8 phases. They all start with the letter A. The theory behind this is if you get each of these phases right, it's like getting straight A's on the report card, right? Your customers are happy with you. They're giving you more than passing marks. You're elevating to the next level. All right. The first phase is the assess phase. This is when a prospective patient is trying to decide whether or not they want to do business with you. They're checking out your website, your marketing materials. They're talking to other patients of yours. In common parlance, we call this marketing and sales. Okay. In most businesses, that is the bulk of the effort and the focus by most practices. In my version, it's the first, but only one of 8 distinct phases. We then go to phase 2, the admit phase. This is when the prospective patient admits that they have a need or a want or a desire that they believe you can help them fulfill. They sign on the dotted line. They hand over their hard-earned cash. They officially schedule that appointment to become a first-time patient. Okay. This is day 1, by the way, in the first 100 days clock. So the clock has started ticking now. We are in day 1. We then go to the affirm phase, phase 3. Now, affirm phase is the buyer's remorse phase. And with dentists, this actually kicks in a little bit early before the purchase in the sense that they sign up and they book the appointment and they begin to doubt their decision that they just made to book an appointment. This is why some of you have patients that cancel their appointments. Even before they've met you, you've done nothing wrong other than fail to recognize you have a human being who is suffering from the dopamine release of scheduling the appointment, the receding of the dopamine, making them doubt the decision they just made, and them deciding to cancel the appointment and kick the can further down the road. And they'll either go to another dentist or what is actually the biggest competition, I think, for most dentists, which is not going to the dentist. Nothing. That's your competitor. Your competitor isn't Dr. Steve down the road or Dr. Jane in the next town over. Your competitor is the patient sitting at home thinking that brushing their teeth is enough. That's actually the competition. We then come to phase 4, the activate phase. This is that first real moment of truth where they show up at your office for the very first visit, whether that's a cleaning, an exam, if there's already an emergency procedure, a root canal, something that needs to be done, whatever that first real moment of truth. In the activate phase, you want to energize the relationship. You want to let the patient know that being a patient of yours is going to be unlike any business experience they've ever had. Not any patient experience. We're not comparing you to the other healthcare experiences they've had. Any experience as a new customer in any aspect of their life. So the competition is Netflix and Disney and Tesla and all the great brands they've interacted with in their life. We then come to phase 5. And as a pro tip, Jesse, phase 5 is where most of your patients currently are, everyone who's listening, and it's where most of your patients will leave. Phase 5 is the acclimate phase, where the patient gets used to your way of doing business. So you've been in practice for years now. You've done countless numbers of cleanings, countless number of fillings. You know your process. You know your procedures. You know your methodologies. But to a brand new patient, they have no idea what comes next. They don't know when they come in for their checkbook, are you going to find 1 cavity or 10? They don't know if they're going to get told to floss. Well, of course, they're going to get told to floss, and they're still not going to floss. But the moral of the story is they have no idea what's coming next, and you need to hold their hand and help them acclimate to your way of doing business. Are you on a subscription model? Are you the kind of dentist that recommends a cleaning every 3 months or every 6 months or every year? What kind of work needs to be done to undo the past bad dental hygiene habits that they had? Or are they great and you just continue to ride their great hygiene habits that they already have? They don't know. You'll know once you're there. But even though you get them into that acclimate phase, they're going to need to be reminded of what comes next and consistently reminded. Then we move to phase 6, the accomplish phase. The accomplish phase is when the patient accomplishes the goal they originally had back when they were a prospective patient. See, every patient that calls and schedules an appointment has a vision of what the finish line looks like. Now, here's the challenge. The vision the dentists have is often very different than the vision the patient has. The vision the dentist has is usually this first-time patient will become a long-term patient. And when they get married, they will bring their spouse. And when they have children, they will bring their children. And when they have grandchildren, they will bring their grandchildren. And this will be the answer to my practice. I will be able to have a successful practice built solely from this one patient and all the referrals and all the extension they're going to create. The patient has a very different goal. I want this tooth not to hurt. I want my teeth to look straighter. I want my teeth to look white in the photographs I take. If we're not sure what the patient is actually hoping to accomplish, and if we don't track our progress towards that goal, and when they achieve that goal, celebrate it with them, we never have the chance to get to the last two phases. Phase 7, the adopt phase, when the patient becomes loyal to us and only us. They are that long-term patient who will continue to come back on regular schedule for cleanings, for checkups, for everything we want them to do without us even needing to remind them. And last but not least, the advocate phase, phase 8, where they become a raving fan, singing our praises far and wide, referring the friends, referring the colleagues, bringing new business to us. Those are the 8 phases. And if we do it right, we have the chance to rinse and repeat. What I mean by that is when you get to the advocate phase, as you roll out new products or new service offerings, you go back to the beginning of the 8 phases. This is a mistake most long-term business owners make. They think that their adopters and their advocates are going to buy anything. And most of them will buy anything. But you still want to walk them through all the phases. And the reason you want to walk them through the phases is if you don't acknowledge that they're going to walk through those phases, assessing whether or not they need this new home teeth whitening kit, deciding that they do, actually buying it, then doubting the investment they just made, then taking it home and using it for the first time, then becoming more routine and habitual with using it all the time, to finally achieving the goal they had of whiter teeth, to then saying, I want to continue to get the solution I need to keep using this going forward, to I want to tell all my friends why my teeth got whiter because my dentist got me this home whitening kit. We've got to cycle them through it again and again and again. If you do it right, that's how a one-time customer becomes a long-time customer far past the first 100 days.
Wow, there is so much to unpack in that, mate. And I am going to ask you about one or two of those A's. But before we do that, I'm just going to recommend to everyone right now, go and grab the book because Joey does go through these 8 phases in detail. It's a really, really meticulously laid out, structured pathway. Grab the book. You'll love it. But for now, I do want to ask you about 5 and 6.
Sure.
Acclimate, because you said that's typically where we come unstuck, and then accomplish. Why is it that we start to take people for granted as customers? I guess it's what we spoke about earlier. You know, it's the difference between courting and marriage. Is it simply just familiarity breeding contempt? Is it us just neglecting the thing that we've got? Is that how it works?
I think that's the bulk of it. Yeah. And I also think the thing most dentists, most business owners fail to remember is that your familiarity with your operations, with your practice, with your understanding of your subject matter expertise is unique.
Yes.
I made a joke earlier about flossing.
You did.
Okay. I know this joke works in the dental world because most patients don't floss. How do I know that? Because I am a rabid flosser after having had horrible dental experiences because I didn't floss. So now I have become militant. I carry floss in my bag. I carry floss in my shaving kit. I have floss in my bathroom next to my bedroom. I have floss everywhere just in case. I am a dentist's dream when it comes to floss because you don't need to tell me anymore. But I'm also in my late 40s and learned it the hard way. So I think the problem is most dentists think that their patients are going to be as excited about their teeth as the dentist is. That's not the way it works. And if we doubt the validity of that, I ask you just to look in the mouths of the majority of your patients. They don't pay as much attention you do. Why is it that dentists seem to have the best teeth on the planet, even better than models? Because guess what? They care about their teeth more than anyone else on the planet. Just like a lawyer a criminal defense lawyer cares more about paying attention to not breaking the law than anyone else on the planet. Just like an accountant cares more about getting the taxes done and all the numbers lining up than anyone else on the planet. We are predisposed to those things with which we have personal connection and personal understanding of. So I think that's the main reason why most people have a tendency to lose sight of the novice status or the less educated status or the less interested status of our patients in that acclimate phase.
When I think of customer retention, and I know we're talking about the different phases here, but I remember there's a great song Billy Joel wrote called Tell Her About It. And I'm seeing a nod there, which hopefully means that's in your age demographic.
Well within my, let's just say Billy Joel was the regular music that you wanted to put on, especially in college. If you were thinking about having a romantic evening or anybody was getting together, Billy Joel was along for the ride in my age.
Yeah, in my age too. And
I think it's Michael Bublé now a little bit more, although he's singing the standards and bringing back Sinatra's stuff, which was actually before Billy Joel. It all connects, Jesse.
It all connects, yeah. So in the song Tell Her About It, he's got a line, just because you haven't spoken for so long, will that be a consolation when she's gone? And I guess the thing that I'm referencing in that is not taking that communication for granted, investing actively in the relationship, communicating with intention rather than just, kind of blithely, rolling along, because as you say, we're familiar with our own process and we just forget that others aren't. And then when they're gone, it's still not a consolation, the fact that they're gone, right? And so we need to think about that.
Absolutely. Well, and I think respectfully, and I get that, I want to preface this again. It's hard to be a business owner. Yeah. It's hard to have your own dental practice. So full stop, we could just end the conversation right there. It's very hard.
It is.
But if you're the kind of person that's listening to the Savvy Dentist podcast, you're the kind of person that isn't comfortable just saying, I'm all done. You're wanting to increase your knowledge. You're wanting to make your practice better. You're wanting to grow your practice, make it more valuable, have even greater connection to your patients, serve more people, impact more of your community. Here's the thing. When it comes to the ongoing communication with our patients, most dentists, not all, not your listeners, Jesse, but most, put it on autopilot.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is, well, we've scheduled your next cleaning for 6 months out, and we'll send you a reminder email about that a week before. Meanwhile, over the next 6 months, every month we will send you our dental e-newsletter, which has all kinds of tips about how to take better care of your teeth. Now, here's the kicker. No one at the practice actually reads the newsletter because we've outsourced that and we subscribe to someone else. We're not even interested in reading it, yet we presume our patients are going to read it.
Yeah.
There's zero interaction with them during that time until it's valuable to us again. Come pay us more money to clean your teeth in 6 months.
Yep.
What would happen if we had communications that weren't about the next appointment? What would happen if we, decided to, since we're asking everybody to friend our Facebook page, we actually friended their pages, their personal pages, and had someone on staff that when the office was quiet would actually look and see, oh, Jane's daughter just got into university. We should send her a little note and congratulate her. Oh, Bob's team just won the championship. We should send him a little note saying we're rooting for him in the same way he's rooting for his favorite team. Oh, Timmy made the soccer team. We should send him a note saying, make sure to wear your mouth guard, right? I mean, there's any number of things that we could do to create personal and emotional connections with our patients if we were just willing to spend a little more time. It doesn't require a huge investment of dollars or effort. I'm talking about instead of mindlessly scrolling through social media on your friends' pages, you include your patients' pages in your friend list.
Yeah.
And if you see something interesting, you comment on it. It's that simple.
You've touched on something that I think is really important. And one of the things that when we're talking about designing a great experience for patients, we talk about the importance of creating connection and, the depth of the relationship and that real human experience rather than, the automated email, the this, the that. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about one of the objections that I hear some people talk about when it comes to designing great experiences, because I'm sure you've heard this too. But one of the questions that comes up is, yeah, but, Joey, that doesn't really scale, does it?
Yeah. So a couple thoughts on that, as you might imagine. Jesse, for those of you that can't see us, Jesse just wound me up. So here we go. So a couple thoughts. You're right. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't scale. And I'm not interested in doing the things that scale easily. I'm interested in doing the things that don't scale. Because when we scale things just for scaling's sake, why we decided to have that become the most important word of business, especially over the last decade, I do not understand. But when we scale things for scaling's sake, we actually distance ourselves from the customers even more. It's not just an either or. We actually accelerate the distancing because it's harder to have a patient not feel like a number when we're doing these automated scaling behaviors. Okay. Additionally, do I think that every patient needs to be treated the same? No, I don't. Now, some people are like, oh my gosh, she's the customer experience expert that says you should treat them differently. Yes. Now, that's not permission to treat them poorly. No. That's permission to create a base level, great experience for everyone, but then deliver remarkable world-class experiences for your best patients. Well, who's your best patient? Somebody might be thinking. Well, it might be the patient who's the most consistent, who comes in for the cleanings no matter what. It might be the patient who makes the most referrals. It might be the patient who has the biggest following on social media, and every time they go to the dentist, they do a post about what they did, and people see that, and it's free marketing for you. I don't care how you define best. I just want you to think about defining it.
Yeah.
I just want you to give some thought to, well, who are our patients that we want to double down on? It may be the patient that looks and acts most like the type of patient you want more of. Maybe you're switching your practice and you want to go from serving people that are your age, which often is where dentists start, peers,
yes,
to serving people that are younger or serving people that are older. So start to model the behaviors and the patient types that you want by showering more attention on those type of patients, because by default, that will lead to them doing more reviews, doing more referrals, being more consistent in their own participation in your practice. These things that actually will result in you growing your practice without scaling.
100%. And I think what I really appreciate of what you've just said there is scaling has become the word. I love the fact that you've identified that it can take people away from that human connection. And what I really also appreciate is you've spoken about a baseline, great experience, excellent experience as a baseline, and then remarkable for the top tier patients. So can we just talk about the baseline for a second? Because I think that's a starting point. And I wanted to talk about, someone's listening to this podcast and say, hey, Joey, I really resonate with this. This sounds great. I get it. There's 8 phases I'm going to need to get through. I want to create this baseline experience to start with, and then I'm going to reach out to my best customers and do something remarkable. But how do I get started creating my baseline?
Oh, this is a fun question, Jesse. And if I may, this also segues into that employee conversation a little bit. Okay. The best way to create a baseline experience is to get everybody in your practice on the same page that that's what we want to create. And how do we do that? Well, we might want to start by looking at how do we actually treat our employees? Are they having a great experience? Because guess what? If they love coming to work, they're going to love interacting with your patients. If they can't stand coming to work and it's just a paycheck, they're going to show up with that kind of attitude when they interact with your patients. So there's an opportunity for us right out of the blocks to look at the employee experience. Taking that one step further, what are the key touch points in your practice that you can make sure you're delivering in an incredible way? For example, I have yet to see a dentist who will do work remotely. As a general rule, you kind of have to be in the mouth of the person you're working on. Now, I know with COVID and some of the things, we've been able to FaceTime a tooth to see if an abscess needs to be repaired right away or something. But as a general rule, the bulk of dental work is going to be done in person until we have haptic dental tools that somebody can put a mouth guard in and you can remotely control it. But we're not quite there yet. So what do they need to do? Well, they need to schedule an appointment.
Yes.
Is your appointment scheduling process smooth and easy? Is it the best ever, or is it annoying? Can they do it online without calling you? Can they find times that are convenient to their schedule? Do they get automated reminders? Those are kind of ante-up chips that will make your experience on par with getting their oil changed or getting a haircut or some of the other services that allow them to book online. Next, when someone walks into your office, do they feel, and since we've already dated ourselves in terms of age, do they feel that this is the scene from the TV show Cheers, where they walk in and everybody knows your name?
Yes.
Or are they met with stunned silence where they have to identify themselves first? Here's the thing I've never understood about most dental practice. You schedule appointments at a specific time. As a general rule, you're only able to see one patient at a time, maybe 2 or 3 if you have multiple beds and you're popping between them. Why is it when I walk in, doesn't the receptionist say, "Joey, it's time for the 6-month cleaning"? Or, "Sandra, oh my goodness, we'll get you back right away. I know that tooth must be killing you." Why don't we acknowledge people when they step into our place of business, especially when they've made an appointment and we know their name?
So that's a really good question. And I loved the Cheers reference too. Thank you for another teenage flashback. Lots of good reminiscing today. But you're absolutely right. I think we've got to know who's walking through the door. We have a schedule in front of us. We know that Joey should be walking in at 10 o'clock.
There aren't many drop-by dental appointments. There are a few, but they're pretty rare.
It's not what you do for fun normally, is it? Hey,
right.
I've got a spare 10 minutes. I think I might go and drop into a dentist just for fun.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, if we've got 2 people or 3 people due to come and see us, we've got Joey and we've got Sandra. It's a pretty good guess we're going to know who Sandra and Joey are, right? And if we're smart, we will have had a photo on the records as well.
Yes,
so we can go,
yes,
that's Joey.
Exactly. We can use our technology and use our tools to our advantage. Match up, look on social media, grab a photo from there, take a photo. You're already taking x-rays. Yeah. It would be okay to take a photo. The patient probably wouldn't even bat an eye if you were like, we do some jaw alignment assessment. Let me take a photo of you as well to make sure I have the symmetry of your face matching what I'm seeing on the x-rays. Most patients would be like, wow, this is the first dentist that's ever asked for my picture. Sure, take it away. Little do they realize it's so that we can identify you in the patient records and call you by name every single time. Not to mention giving the dentist the option. I mean, Jesse, not to put you on the spot, but as a dentist, how many times have you walked into a room looking at the chart, trying to remember what the patient actually looks like?
Yes.
All the time. That's not because you're bad. That's because you're human. And so why not have that for your own record of, oh, yeah, that's right. Very rarely do people say, I never forget a name. I only forget a face. No, it's the opposite. They never forget a face. They do forget the name. So let's play to the human condition. Additionally, I think the majority of people don't like going to the dentist. I know I waited until this far into the podcast to drop that earth-shattering fact, and hopefully no one's offended. But the reality is the majority of people don't like going.
No.
So what can we do as dentists to make going to the dentist enjoyable? What if somebody looked forward to going to the dentist as much as they looked forward to going to their favorite restaurant?
Yeah.
Which, by the way, they're probably not going to their favorite restaurant every week, just like they're not going to their favorite dentist every week. But they might go for a special occasion. What does that restaurant do? They call them by name. They give them a little special treat. They bring out the plate with their name already on it, right? They bring out the menu printed out, happy anniversary. They do little things to let them know that they matter as an individual. What is the equivalent of that in the dental practice? Well, I think it's creating opportunity for people to be entertained in your office. It used to be enough that you had a magazine. Now I expect you to have cell phone chargers, solid Wi-Fi, maybe something if I want to be off my phone for my kids to play with, some toys that, are in the practice, these little things. And let's not have magazines from 8 years ago still on display, right? Maybe we want to add a book in. Maybe we put a set of books in and it's like, hey, start reading it. If you get into it, take it with you. Just bring it back at your next cleaning. Oh, wait a second. Now we have a physical talisman that leaves our office that goes to their home that reminds them of their dentist, that they finish the book and then they bring it back. Wow. At the cost of a couple paperbacks might be worth investing in, right? So what are the things we can do to make coming to the office an actual experience? What about having massage chairs while they wait instead of the standard ridiculous chairs that most dentists have, which were bought at the lowest possible price at the going out of business fire sale at the office supply store, right? Yeah. What if we made our spaces an environment, a destination that somebody was coming to? See, the possibilities, Jesse, are limitless. And the reason I'm rattling so many off is everyone listening is only limited by the bounds of their own imagination as to what works for them. If you have a personal thing, maybe you're a dentist that's really into Legos. Why not decorate your office with Legos?
Yep.
That would be different. What does it have to do with dentistry? Nothing. And that's the point.
Yes.
I don't need to walk in and see another model of teeth. What might be interesting is to walk into the Star Wars room that's all decorated with Star Wars paraphernalia, or the Lord of the Rings room that's all decorated with Lord of the Rings paraphernalia. And then when the patient's coming, can you imagine a scenario where a patient scheduling an appointment said, "Can I please get the My Little Pony room? Can I please get the strawberry shortcake room? Can I please get the Lego room?" Whatever it may be.
Yep.
Now it's an experience.
I love that. And I have to tell you about a friend of mine who's a podiatrist. He's a really clever guy, a nice guy, friend of mine, great marketer. His podiatry practice was themed by superheroes. So you'd go into the Green Lantern room or the Captain America room or whoever it was.
I love it.
Fantastic. And
I love it.
But it's exactly what you said, is people would say, "Can I go to the Captain America room?" or whatever it is. And people loved it and they left with a story to tell.
And who tells a story about their podiatrist?
No one.
No one. Until Tyson. And his office was called the Batcave. I love it. I love it. And my gut instinct is Tyson is a superhero fan.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. Not everyone in his practice was a superhero fan, I'm sure. But guess what? That's okay. Remember, we're not doing this for everyone.
Exactly right.
That's the point. Stop watering down or dumbing down your ideas, your vision, your creativity, your hopes, your dreams to be the least common denominator for all of them. I want some people to listen to this podcast and say, "I don't want to buy Joey's book. I don't want to listen to him ever again. That guy is too crazy. He's too radical." Great. Thank you for your time. You're not part of my tribe. You're not part of my audience. That's okay. Your dental practice can be the same way. If you decorate with movie rooms and you've got somebody who doesn't like movies, congratulate yourself on identifying that early in the relationship, because if they don't like movies, I probably don't like them. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it's books. Maybe it's theater. Maybe it's musicals. It's up to you. Whatever's going to resonate and get you and your team excited. I promise you a significant percentage of your patients are going to be excited about that level of personality and pizzazz as you will.
Oh, wow. Joey, I feel like I could talk to you for 3 days straight without drawing breath. You've been really, 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 really generous with your time, really, really generous with your knowledge, and so much, as I said, that we could explore and dive into. The whole premise of this podcast that I run is not invented here. You know, it's a dental podcast. We talk to some dentists, but we talk to people like you and others who bring great ideas from all around the place that we can then adapt and apply to our own business. So I wanted to ask you, from your own experience, 1 or 2 or 3 people or businesses that you go, "You know what, I really love what they've done, and I've been able to take some ideas and adapt that to other industries," because you've spoken about Lego, you've spoken about the films and the theatre. Where do you get your ideas from, and what inspires you?
Oh, I love it. I love this question. My goal, Jesse, is to try to walk through life as a sponge.
Yeah.
Absorbing as many different ideas and perspectives as possible. I do that in a lot of different ways. You know, one place I get from ideas, I love going to the magazine store, the bookstore with a big magazine rack, and intentionally pulling 24 magazines off the shelf that I've never read before, and either buying them or sitting them down and just flipping through them and looking at what's in them, because it exposes me to different industries, different perspectives, different ideas, different creativity. In terms of businesses that I like and think are really special, I mentioned Lego. I'm a big Lego fan. I played with Lego as a kid. what Lego has done to build their adult fans of Lego community, what they've done to continue to develop their own intellectual property with brands like Ninjago that if you have kids, you're probably familiar with, but also to license Harry Potter and Star Wars and other brands to kind of pair with those. So I love their creativity. I love their commitment to thinking about bigger picture issues. You know, one of the things Lego's working on is in this world where we're increasingly becoming aware of our responsibility to the planet, Lego, as a giant plastics company, is saying, how can we make Lego bricks that aren't made out of plastic? And they already have some plant-based bricks in their inventory, and they're working on their packaging, and they're rolling out new packaging to get rid of the plastic bags that their Legos come in and now put them into paper bag. As a company, they inspire me with the variety of different things that they're doing. I'll say on the last point on this is I'm a big fan of Leonardo da Vinci. And the reason I'm a fan of Da Vinci is he's often held up as the quintessential model of the Renaissance man. He had interest in a variety of different fields, and by bringing his knowledge of one field to another field, it allowed him to approach things in a way that that field had never considered. You know, his exploration of a seed falling out and helicoptering down out of a tree helped him to design the first, what would have go on to become the actual helicopter, you know? And so this idea of trying to get exposure to a variety of different fields and industries is something that I try to do in my own life.
Well, Joey, I really, really want to tell you that something that has inspired me a great deal is this book. It is a wonderful read. And just ladies and gents, once again, do yourself a favor, grab a copy of Never Lose a Customer Again by Joey Coleman. It is going to be a Bible for you. It's going to help you retain your customers. It's going to help you deliver remarkable experiences. And it's going to also give you a lot of satisfaction in your work, because something joyous comes when you're delivering a great experience as well, not just for the patient, but for you as the experience giver. There's a lot of joy that comes in that as well. Joey, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. It's been fun from me to you. I appreciate it a great deal.
Oh, thanks, Jesse. It's my pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Savvy Dentist podcast. For more episodes, go to drjessiegreen.com/savvydentist. And to discover how to build a high-performance dental practice, visit drjessiegreen.com and download the free report.